Yeah, today I'd like to talk to you about God's will in your life. Because many times people say, well, what's God's will? What's God's will? And an old pastor friend of mine, he's come in, what's God's will? He says, that's easy. Breathe in and out and walk forward. I go, what? I need detail. Just breathe in and out, walk forward. As long as you're seeking Him, He'll just put you right where He wants you. So, many years ago, in fact, it was 1980, and I had a carpet cleaning business. We were saved, serving Jesus and everything. And a friend of mine called me from Atlanta, Georgia, and he says, Bob, I'd like to offer you a job. He said, I just took a job up here, and I'm working with 5 furniture stores, and I would like to somebody come up here and start a carpet department in all 5 stores. And he said, you will be paid very well. And I thought, golly, is this an opportunity? Is this God? And I felt my heart, and everything in my heart started, go, 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 go. So I went to the elders of the church, and I said, brothers, I feel like I had this opportunity to move to Atlanta, Georgia, and this guy's offering me this real good job, and I don't know if I should go or not. So I had 12 elders, people in the church, don't go. No, Bob, don't go. I said, well, the carpet business is really pretty thin right now, and don't you worry about money, you stay. Don't go. But yet my heart was, you need to go, you need to go, you need to go. So what's God's will now? I have 12 mature Christian pastors and adults saying, don't go, don't go. But my heart was saying, go, go, go. So anyway, guy says, come up here. You'll get paid well, Bob. And also my friend told me, he said, in the world, he says, what I've learned, you get 2 or 3 shots in life that are really super blessing. And he says, Bob, I believe this is a shot in your life right now. A shot. You don't get many shots, but a shot to really move up the ladder, financially, et cetera, et cetera.
Can I say we were really kind of hurting right then, too?
It was slow.
It was very slow.
Very slow.
So.
They said, if it's real slow, don't worry, Bob, we'll take care of you. But this guy had given me this business opportunity in Atlanta, Georgia. Really, I managed over the carpet department's flooring over 5 stores around the Atlanta area. Big multi-million-dollar company in operation. So anyway, just to make all this story short. So anyway, I had to put my house up for sale. Put my house, and I was so on go. I said to myself, if the house don't sell, I'm just going to give the pastor. I'm going on. Listen to this. So we said, okay, I'll take the job. Put my house up for sale, and on Saturday, we were going to go. We were going to go no matter what. My heart was beating so hard for that. And I'll tell you, so a guy come over and said, hey, I know a lady might buy a house. So the night that we were to go, a lady come to our house at 11 o'clock at night and bought the house. Bought the house. We had a garage sale, sold everything. And she bought the house. I thought, there is a sign from God right there. And then I had a carpet cleaning company. I put it up for sale. Boom. Sold immediately. So it's like all these doors are going open, open, open. And my heart was beating through that. So we packed up the U-Haul and all the kids, and we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. It was 1980. Moved up there. And so we were on fire and didn't know really where to live. And so we found a house to live. And then we found a real hot church in the Atlanta area, but we had to drive 50 miles to get there. And I kept telling Nancy, God put us in a neighborhood. He wants us to minister in that neighborhood, not 50 miles away. And I feel like God wants us to go to church in the neighborhood. So Nancy was driving down the road one day, about 2 blocks from her house, and
our son had just wrecked our car. We had a Volkswagen, and we tied the front up, the hood down, so it wouldn't bounce up. And I was going down the road, and my goodness, that hood just kept going like that. And I swerved over right in front of a church. It was called Mountain View Baptist Church. I didn't think of us as a Baptist, but and this guy came out. He says, well, what's wrong, little lady? I says, my hood's coming up. And he checked it. He says, it's tight, lady. And he says, what did he say? And he says, are you spirit-filled? I said, yes. He says, will you come to my office with me? I said, okay, I'll come. I went back there, and his name was Marshall Vaughn. And he showed me some albums he sang and stuff. And really, when I talked to him, he was a real evangelist, But anyhow, He says, is your husband like you? I says, oh, yes, he is. He says, would you come to my church? I said, I don't know. I'll go home and ask Bob. And if he says yes, we will. Well, we went to his church the next Sunday, and it was just kind of exciting. I don't know. I'll let Bob tell you that part.
Yeah, well, so we started going there, and he made me adult Sunday school teacher right away. I had 50 people in class, and we started they had the Baptist outline I had to follow, but yet when you have the Spirit and you teach it, it comes alive. And they started weeping and crying. So every time I had Sunday school on Sunday, they would cry and cry. And they got so turned on. I don't think on another flick we did, I would be there, and church Sunday school starts 10:45. Church starts 11, and then this old man at 11:45. People weeping and crying, wanting Jesus, and he's flipping the light switch off and on. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! You know. So anyway, we have many friends still today from back in the '80s that got turned on to Jesus just by being the light and coming and living it. Their Christianity back then was dry, but we just come in with life, or carrying the flashlight of Jesus and the light of God, and it just lit them up. And so we become really good friends with the pastor. Just a real quick story. So every Thursday he would go out and do visitation to the body. There's like 150, 175 people there or so. And we would go out, and then he knew his eyes on fire and everything. He said, Bob, will you go out on visitation with me on Thursday nights? I said, I'd love to. So he'd pick me up at 6 o'clock, and I never knew he chewed tobacco. So he'd chewing tobacco like this and spitting in a cup and all this stuff. I thought, well, whatever, you know, country boy. And so then we pull up the people's driveway, and I swear, he had a half a gallon of Listerine. So he spit that on the cup, took that Listerine, spit it out the window, and I thought, you reek with alcohol. And you go up the door, they're going to think you've been drinking. I mean, he just glowed with Listerine. Now listen to me, this is good old Baptist church, and we're doing visitation. So we pull up the driveway. These are all people on the roll. We go up, he'd knock on the door, and we'd be there. And all of a sudden, I look to the left and right, and I see curtains just shaking like this. But no one would ever answer the door. They wouldn't answer the door. Preacher's at the door. He ain't coming in here, you know. And I see peeking, the curtain shaking. I said, well, Pastor Vaughn, looks like that nobody home, you know. So we jump the car. We go another 15 minutes to another house, and they had chewing tobacco in there again, like this. We pull up the next drive, and you take that big old half gallon of Listerine, spit that out. Took the Listerine, spit it out. I go, God, you reek with alcohol, man. They must smell you. They think you've been drinking. So anyway, so we go up the door again and knock on the door, and no one. We had wonderful visitation that night. We visited nobody because nobody let the preacher in, and they wouldn't even acknowledge a preacher knocking on the door. You know, so we'd be knocking on the door, and I'm looking out the windows, and they'd see the curtains blowing. So we'd leave. So that was our visitation that night of nothing. You know, so anyway, Nancy, tell me real quick about his granddaughter dying.
He had a granddaughter. He had a daughter named Penny, and he had a granddaughter named Jody. And he loved Jody. You know how sometimes children just bring such pleasure to grandparents. And he just loved Jody. She was so sweet and so kind. Well, she got, I can't remember what kind of cancer she got, but she lost all of her hair. And he would go in the hospital room and just lay in the bed with her and just talk to her. And he just spent all his time with Jody at that time of his life. And he says, Nancy, she said to me, Grandpa, you see those angels out that window? And he says, I looked, I didn't see any angels. But she just kept talking about the angels out the window, and she died. And he grieved that little girl. He grieved. He didn't want to, his wife was named Catherine. He didn't want to mess up her sleep, but he just grieved. He grieved Jody's death. He just loved Jody. And so he started sleeping out on the couch, and he says, Nancy, I hung my pants over the chair when I crawled in the couch that night. And he says, I just had such a hard time sleeping. And at one time I just opened my eyes, I couldn't sleep, and the room was glowing. he said, I looked at my pants over that chair and it looked like there was lights through them. And he says, all of a sudden, I saw Jody. God allowed me to see Jody, and she's just smiling. And he says, her teeth were like little pearls. Little pearls. And he says, she looked so beautiful, so well. She had her hair back. She was gorgeous. And he said, that brought my grief to an end. And that was just one thing I remember about Marshall. He was one of my favorite people. He was so real, so himself, loved people. You know, he'd preach every Sunday a salvation message because he wanted to get his congregation saved. But he was really an evangelist. He was, but he was a wonderful man. I went with his wife to do a deliverance. She asked me if I'd go, and it was a state away or something. I drove with her, and the whole time we drove, she had a book on the steering wheel reading. You know, I said, I can read it to you. No, I'm used to doing this, that, Nancy. I said, okay. And so anyhow, I went with her, and we halfway there, I said, she had to go to the bathroom. She stopped to go to the restroom. I says, I don't have to go. She says, you get in there and go. And I says, yes, ma'am. And so I went in there. You make the most of every opportunity with her. She was so different than Marsha, but she was cool. And anyhow, we went and we prayed with this girl who just couldn't forgive herself for her sins. God can forgive all sins. I mean, all sins. And she just didn't believe that. But we prayed, we delivered, I'm hoping to see her in heaven one day. But God is so good, and He's took us many paths in this life so far. Well, 26 and I'm 70 now. We've been a lot of places, but He's good. He loves you, and He wants you for His very own. You just need to say, Jesus, come into my heart. Forgive me of my sins. Live your life in me from this day forward. And if you mean it, He'll do it. He'll do it. He wants you. He wants you. He wants your family. He wants your friends. He wants your cousins. He wants your nephews, nieces. He wants you. He wants a big family in heaven. That's what He wants in heaven. A big, loving family. And you know what? Say I'm not very loving? Oh, He can change all that. Once He gets in and can start working, He'll make you what He wants you to be. You just got to trust Him. I trust you, Jesus. And you can know when you die, you're going to go to heaven. Amen.